welcome to our Morning Throners podcast. I'm Nelson.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We're the Morning Throners, episode 5, House of the Dragon recap.
Yeah.
About to hit you square in the face. What an episode.
So good.
I mean, the episode was phenomenal. Start to finish.
Timeline-wise, it's picking up right on the heels, right? No time jump.
No time jump.
I think that helps. I think that's part of why it's so good.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We just pick up. There was no what happened in between now? Nothing. We're right here.
Yeah. And there is some fast, a lot of stuff happens this episode takes place over the course of a few days, I'm guessing, right? Like they go to Driftmark and back via boat, right?
How far is Driftmark? I don't even know where Driftmark is
right
on
next
the map.
to Dragonstone, basically.
So northeast?
Like they can fly a dragon there and back in a day, but on a boat, maybe a day's ride, day and a half.
So if you've come to learn anything in Game of Thrones, it's don't trust anything that's going on during wedding ceremonies. Like, obviously something was about to pop off and a lot of shit, dude. The one thing I think that is maybe underestimated or people don't think about is the scoring of the music. And we've talked about this a little bit, but the drums and the flashes of seeing this person or that person, the directing and the video editing of this episode was unbelievable.
Yeah, just I wonder if you watch it back, I'm sure that episode will be cool, but just without any music, right? Before the Valerians come in, everyone's talking and there's a big you're talking about big drum beat, right? And then right when the beating happens at the end, the big confrontation happens, once they start clearing everyone out, I think they're playing the same music that was being played when Rhaenyra in episode 1 at the very end when Viserys is talking to Rhaenyra. They're it's like ding ding ding, just the piano ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
But a weird variation of it. But yeah, it's silent, it's still, it just makes it really tense.
Dude, it was awesome.
And the thing is, the way that they're changing the stuff from the books makes it so that I know stuff is going to happen and I'm just waiting for it to happen. And then it happens in a completely different way. And I'm oh my God, I'm surprised by stuff that I know is going to happen. You know what I mean?
But you're not mad that it's different.
We'll get into some of it as we go, but let's get to the start.
Okay. So we jump in. What do we do?
Starts off with Rhea Royce.
Yeah, dude.
Daemon's
she's
wife.
She wasn't
she's kind of good looking. She's good looking.
Yeah, she's good looking. I'm who's this girl? And then it's oh, Rhea Royce. I'm what the hell is his problem? She's not bad.
Yeah, and I think the really cool thing, again, they're just doing fan service to the diehards, is the thing we know about the Royces is the Lord Royce, whereas he has runes carved into his armor. And I don't know if you noticed, but she's not wearing armor. She's wearing a leather thing. But there's weird
jerkin.
There's there's runes engraved into it. They look like Nordic runes, Viking runes.
I'd have to look again. I didn't even notice. I was trying to look for the sigil on her deal and I couldn't see it, but I guess that's kind of the calling
that's
card.
probably what they were doing. Yeah, and then even the guy who came to King's Landing had this the same type of runes carved onto. So I like how they're just doing that type of thing. What happened? I don't think I like that scene.
The cool part about the scene in my mind was that Daemon basically did everything by not saying a word. I think he might have said hi to her. Or
how did she fall? I don't know.
He pulled on the reins. I think he did. He got the horse to.
He did
throw her. Yeah.
It looked like he just took a step back. She went for her bow and kind of ended up making herself fall. And I was what? Doesn't make any sense.
Something. Yeah. It happened pretty quick when she realized he was there to kill her.
Yeah. When she's finish it, I assume that she at least thought that he caused the fall. And I thought the horse's leg broke. The way they showed the legs, I thought the horse's leg broke.
Well, the horse got up and ran
away.
off.
Yeah.
Somehow he got the horse to throw her and fall backwards. I don't know. He must be pretty scary.
I get what they were going for. I just don't think it was I don't think that scene was well done. If I'm being
I don't
honest.
know.
I think the episode as a whole is awesome.
That's how
that scene was
a horse reacts. For it to why wouldn't the horse just kick Daemon?
Yeah, it wouldn't just flop over on its back. And Daemon's not strong enough to push a one town to you'd have had to push that thing. I don't know.
Unless the horse tripped over a rock or something. They were kind of on a hilly pass, but
and again in the books it says that Rhea Royce got injured hunting. Daemon is suspected, kind of shows up the next day and claims hey, I'm the heir now.
Yeah.
And so like I get it. It's like the book insinuates that Damon had something to do with it.
Right.
But like I don't know. I just don't think they showed it. Like I expected like it would have been better if like he just like literally flew by on his dragon and just like picked her up and just like dropped her. You know what I mean? Just from like 20 feet.
Yeah.
Like horse and her just dropped her from like 20 feet.
That would have been too
like right
too
next to a cliff.
though.
Right next to a cliff.
Been too noticeable though. Oh, Craxie shows up, picks up like
she was by herself.
Craxie shows up and then she's dead that day. Like at least like no one saw Damon, I'm assuming. Like he's a hooded figure. For a second I was like, damn, who the fuck's that? Like she's about to just shoot him with an arrow, but Damon popped out.
Yep.
Damon's a cool character. He's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, he's kind of like an asshole. Like this is like the first episode I think where I guess like everything he's done up to this point can be like, did he really say air for a day? Is he really a dickhead? He didn't really fuck his niece. He just like almost did. So like you can kind of like let him skirt by. Here he straight up murders his wife basically, and then like the guy who comes and like calls him out on it, like with all right to call him out on it. Damon's basically like, shut the fuck up, or I'll show up and inherit everything that you own.
Yeah.
Like, get the fuck out of my face, or I'll take everything you own. So he's kind of a dickhead in this episode, but
well, yeah. I think he's a dickhead pretty much in every episode, for especially like people he didn't like. Like he liked Rhaenyra, so like he was always polite around her, but then he was always kind of like a sarcastic douchebag to everybody else.
Yeah.
It's funny how he always just like fucks up. He does something wrong, he gets banished, and then he comes back. Like the next major event, he's back, and he just gets a chair pulled up for him. Like Viserys has no backbone, and it's funny because he goes on with the one strong guy, Harold Strong or whatever is whoever the hand is now, Lionel. And he's like, how are they gonna remember me? Like I didn't do shit. Like you didn't do shit. Like you can't even exile your brother properly.
I love that scene. That's such a good scene. But yeah, so the next thing we get our first shot of Viserys, and we do get Lionel. And again, they kind of tell you more straight up later on, but if you're paying attention, you can see they're on the boat. Viserys is throwing up, and he's wearing like the little hand of the king thing. Yeah. So you can see like right there. Then they're showing up to Driftmark, but before they get there, it cuts back to Otto and Alicent. Otto's on his way out. He's getting kicked out of King's Landing. Right. He's talking to Alicent, and what's he basically telling her?
Basically, like, you're a fool for believing Rhaenyra. Even if you do believe Rhaenyra, you're a fool for like trying to go with her because she's gonna kill your kid one day.
Yeah, she's like, you pushed too hard on Aegon. This is like it's your own. She kind of says like it's your own fault for this happening. You were pushing too hard, playing too many games. And he's like, you have to realize if Viserys dies tomorrow and she's hand, there's just a bunch of people in the realm that aren't going to take that just because she's a woman, and there's going to be wars. Basically what Otto's saying. He's like, so when that happens, Rhaenyra, one option is going to be make it so that I'm the only option, right? Like you guys can't rebel if there's literally no other choice because I kill all my
But there'd still be Daemon too. I mean,
and I don't know if Rhaenyra would, like, from what we've seen, Rhaenyra is like wouldn't do that. Like she's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I know about Rhaenyra anymore.
I think Otto is also exaggerating a little bit. I don't know how many people wouldn't take it well, but how many people would be willing to rebel against a family with dragons because of a gender dispute?
Well, there's open peace right now too, right? So unless the Valerians were like, all right, like let's try and take over the throne right now, and they say like, hey, Alicent, you can marry Laenor now once Viserys dies. Like I don't know. It's the other problem is Aegon is 2. Maybe 3.
Well, my thing is Otto says it to Alicent. He's like, you have 2 options. 1, do what I was doing and get Aegon ready because shit's gonna go down. Or 2, do what you're doing and just hope that like when Rhaenyra comes to power, you're okay. Yeah. And he says it in a way like, oh, that's a stupid approach.
Yeah, but you're a fool.
I think that's a totally fine approach.
I don't think Rhaenyra would kill. Yeah, I don't think she was just like as long as they didn't do anything, they were just cool with her being queen, like she wouldn't kill him.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree for now. I agree
for now. But so let's just say Viserys dies in this episode, which I think he did, because we're about to jump 10 years later. He probably did. I don't know if we'll see Patty. I think his name was he gone. I don't know. Maybe it's not.
This is a big question I have as a non-book reader. They're changing some stuff, but I think he should be alive 10 years from now. Like, so I'm wondering, like, if he is, he's got to be like he's not going on boat rides.
He's got to be pretty fucked up.
Right, he couldn't even stand up getting out of that carriage in this episode. Like he's got to be bedridden type dude. I think they might just change it, and like you're saying, they might just jump to a point where he's dead. But
does he have grayscale?
So I was texting my buddy Ace during this episode, and he said that he knows what he like saw in a leak or something, what the disease is, but they haven't said it in the show, so he wasn't going to tell me. We don't know any other disease. I mean, Ace doesn't. I know a few other diseases from the books, but Ace doesn't know any other diseases.
It didn't look like grayscale.
But I don't think it's grayscale.
It looked like gray skin, or like they almost tried to wrap it with something.
Like his fingers are falling off. Grayscale doesn't make your fingers fall off. They make them like turn to stone almost. So I don't think it's grayscale. It's like leprosy almost.
Couldn't eat or anything. Like I don't know. He's
in bad shape.
He's done bad. Yeah. He's done bad. And Otto said that much to Allison here too. Like could be months, could be years, but this guy's dying.
Mm-hmm. So then we get to Driftmark. When we walk in, again, it's cool as a person who's read the books, and again, like going through it in hindsight, you're gonna catch some of this stuff now too. Like when they first show up, we get Laenor and Joffrey. Mm-hmm. They're the only ones there. They're dueling in the yard or practicing.
I knew he was gay. I mean, once Rhaenyra started talking to him, I was like, he's gay.
Yeah, but like I knew he was gay the whole time. So even then, I'm like, oh, it's like this guy's Joffrey. Right?
That's his guy.
And Joffrey was in the episode where like they're battling the crab feeder. He's one of the guys at the table. I think he has one line. I was super confused in that episode. I mentioned in the spoiler section. I watched with subtitles on, and they subtitled him Joffrey Velaryon, and he says his real name in this one is Joffrey Lonmouth. Yeah. So they subtitled him wrong, and I'm like, wait a minute, they're making this guy. I know Joffrey is the guy Laenor's gay with. They're making Joffrey a Velaryon, so they're making him gay. I thought it was gay incest when I saw the subtitles. Wow. I thought they were changing him, but I've seen that it was just mis-subtitled. He's a different family. It's not gay incest.
I did start watching. I didn't pick up on that. Well, I didn't know who he was either. So like, if it did say Joffrey Velaryon, it wouldn't have mattered to me
at that point because you didn't know they were gay.
Another cousin.
Yep.
Kind of fucked up that Corlys doesn't meet him out front.
Yeah. I mean, it's on purpose. Corlys is playing games with him for big time, right? And it's funny who he does send to meet him. The girl who he spurned. Who's grown up a fuck ton.
Yeah, who's now... Yeah, I mean...
How many years has it been?
I don't know how... She grew up from 12 to 17.
It's been 4 years. So
12 to 16. She's 16 years old. I mean, the actress is probably older. I'm assuming most times they're like 24 playing 16-year-olds.
Yeah, but it's not impossible for a glow up like that.
No.
People post that shit on Instagram now, like when they like, hey, look how stupid I looked like 5 years ago. Now look at me, I'm a fucking smoke show.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, Damon's giving her the eyes later on.
Again, I miss whatever that was. I saw him get up and like go over to her, but I missed it because I was intercut and I was watching the Packers. I'm sorry.
Crazy.
There was like 3 scenes going on at the same time. It was goal line stand, Damon, and something else. We'll get to it. But
so they go through, and then it's a private meeting. Just Lionel.
Before that, I think it's actually my favorite scene of the episode is right before that. Alicent at the Weirwood. She's just chilling there, and then we got Clubfoot shows up.
Yeah, Clubfoot kind of freaked me out.
So his name's Laurys. And the first one thing I love is he's talking.
Well, he's a strong too, right?
He's a strong, and he's talking. So he's the hand's son, and he's talking about this flower. Did you catch this?
Right.
He's like, "Oh, this shouldn't be able to grow in Bravos, or this is native.
No, it shouldn't be able to grow here.
Yeah, this is native to Bravos. Shouldn't be able to grow here, but it does. Right? Do you know what this is a reference to?
Right. How would a lemon tree be in Dorne or
how
whatever?
How would a lemon tree grow in Bravos, which is a big show theory thing, right? He's literally talking about climate differences and what stuff can grow between here and Bravos. But later,
it just proved that you could have a lemon tree.
It's exactly what I think that's exactly what the showrunners are saying. So they're I think they're in a funny way throwing in their opinion of that. They're like, the fucking Bravos thing isn't a big deal. And who knows? Maybe
you can grow trees elsewhere.
Yeah, but the other thing is later in the episode when Christian Cole's talking to Rhaenyra, I love this scene too. But the one thing I'm going to mention there is he's like, we can leave from a boat in Sunspear where they load boats like boxes of oranges on there, right? Which is they're saying the opposite now. They're saying citrus comes from Dorne, so. Both sides, I think they're playing both sides of this fence, but again, I think both of them are just little nods to the lemon thing from the books, the big lemon theory. I just little things that I'm just like, I know they're thinking about when they're putting that shit in. But I love it.
So is he saying? Well, obviously he's like a spy. Is it weird that his name is Larys and Varys is a spy too?
That's what everybody says. He's the first time they hear his name, and I think so, right? Like it seems.
I mean, he just acts creepy as fuck in the background. like sneaking up on her.
Again, I think Varys is a slightly different character in the show than he is in the books. But one of the things that I always talk about in our book podcast is like Varys has all this information, and his game, the way he plays the game is he
uses it when he needs to.
He gives it when he wants to, right? The example, get the non-spoiler example that I can give from the books is he knows that one of Lady Tanda's, just this random lady in King's Landings, one of her servants is like stealing jewels from her, right? And he doesn't tell anybody about this. But when Tyrion needs a way to get Shay into the castle, in the books, this is the way he does it. He's like, oh, I know this information. I've just been sitting on it and not telling anybody, right? Like a good master of whispers would just be giving that information up as soon as they know it. Like, hey, this person's stealing jewels. But not Varys. He sits on it till it's useful. I feel like we get a similar thing with this character here, and we're already seeing it right away, right? He knows one piece of information, and it's not like he's shouting it from the rooftops. He's telling Alicent, who is like the one person who kind of gets all mind fucked by this information, right? Like, hey, she had this Plan B pill dropped off at her door. It's so weird after she just swore to you.
She tries to play it off. She's I'm really excited for where her character is going to go, because I feel like young Alicent was like pretty emotional, and like you could see it in her eyes that like she was sad or she was like surprised, and she's like turning into like more stone like at the end, where she's not going to show her emotions. She's going to start playing the game too. And
I mean, this episode I feel like is like a 180 flip for Alicent, like from Team Rhaenyra to fuck you Rhaenyra,
fuck you, fuck everybody. Like we're about to be Team Hightower.
Yeah, exactly. She wears Hightower. She wears her jersey to the wedding.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love that whole conversation. He's just like being sneaky, and like the way he's giving her the information and like pretending like he doesn't know. He's like, oh, is she sick? Like I saw him taking this medicine to her. He's like, medicine? It's like, yeah, it was like a tea. He's like, oh, she went to Driftmark. He's like, oh, I'm so glad she's healthy. If she's on the boat, she must be healthy. And it's like, oh my God, you know what the fuck you're doing.
Stop being a fucking weirdo, dude.
I love it.
Yeah, he was a stranger. And it was cool when him and, what's the brother's name? Harwin? Harwin. Like they kind of talk later on. So, I mean, he's a cripple, right? So he's finding his way in the world.
Clubfoot, yep. Yeah, next scene. Back to Driftmark, yeah, and this is where I in my notes realized that Viserys was sick. Like, there's a scene where it's like completely quiet, no
couldn't
music.
Stop coughing.
There's no music, and you just hear like.
He has COVID. He has
sounds
COVID.
like Darth Vader standing there.
He had COVID. Yeah. He's got COVID.
Exactly.
He can't talk a full sentence without coughing. He sounded awful.
Yeah, this is another great scene.
Something too, when Rhaenys touches his hand, he like flinched. I don't know if you noticed that.
It hurt him. Like it was like tender.
Something was wrong. He was either embarrassed of it because she like touched his hand and he doesn't have fingers, or
the way I took it was I assumed that whatever that was like creeping up his like into his actual hand, and when she grabbed it, it was like grabbing like a bruise or like a swollen hand.
Something.
He's like, ow.
He definitely flinched.
But yeah, so they're in there.
Basically, like, all right, our kids are gonna get married. Are they having my name or yours? What's going on? And he didn't. Whatever. He can be a Valerian until he takes the throne, then he's a Targaryen. That's super weird. You just change your name midway through.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like, how would the children even feel about that? You know what I mean? Like, if you're that kid, like, you've been grown up and now you're 18, and you're like, hey, you're going to change your last name. You know, like...
I mean, it's probably not that big of a deal because you're going to be king, and it's like, whatever. Or you're like Joffrey, and you pretty much act like Joffrey Lannister anyway, even though you're Joffrey Baratheon.
I guess that's true, yeah.
Like, what's a cooler name? What's cooler, to be a Targaryen or to be a Valerian? Probably a Targaryen. Probably I actually want to take mom's name. There was times where like I was around like Italian people, I'd be like, man, I wish I had my mom's last name right now. Yeah,
I dated this girl in middle school, early high school. Her last name was Powers, and I was like, damn, it's a pretty badass last name. Nelson Powers.
Wouldn't be bad.
Like Austin Powers.
I got the reference when you said Powers.
I mean, that's just a real.
You're basically Austin Powers.
But yeah, interesting.
So, yeah. Just playing chess and checkers.
So then it cuts.
Viserys is like, what the fuck do you want? Like, no, not your name. I'm leaving. Are you accepting or not? They didn't even formally accept. I guess they kind of did when he said like
those. Up later too.
He said those. Well, he says the compromise is equitable. I guess that's kind of a weird way to say yes.
Yeah. It's like, okay, fine.
And then during this, Rhaenyra and Valerian or Laenor are walking on the beach.
Yeah, and she basically says like, "Hey, I I get that you're gay.
I know you like that guy. Well, I like this guy too. So let's get married. We'll have some kids, and we'll move on. You know, what would be. I mean, say they keep going. It doesn't look like. I'm really curious about what Kristen's future is because it looks crazy. But say they keep diddling, and there's no like.
Who keeps diddling?
Kristen and. Like, say Kristen impregnates Rhaenyra.
I'm saying, do you think that's actually an option at this point, though?
No, not anymore.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, going down that hypothetical.
But at that point in the episode,
could pass off as Laenor's, is what you're saying.
I'm curious, like, would the white hair, like, would it look Targaryen, or is Cole hair, like, what if it came out with black hair, and be like, well, that's not his kid.
It's literally the Joffrey problem. It's 100% the Joffrey problem.
Right.
Yeah. It's like we have two people, silver white hair, silver gold, black hair. Like,
what happened?
It's not unheard of. Like, we've had other Targaryens with black hair, but it's not frequent.
So they basically make up their deal to keep diddling who they want.
They're also cousins, right? I don't know how many people are gonna. Maybe we should mention this. It is kind of incesty still. Their
second cousins. I think Rhaenys and well, it's weird because they're second cousins.
What's the daughter? It's a daughter of first cousins. I don't know what that is. That second cousin, daughter and son of first cousins. Is that second cousins?
I think they're either second. They're either second or third. I think they're second.
They're too related to getting married, big time.
Yeah.
So then after that scene. They
definitely share blood, right? I mean, at least the part of it, yeah.
They have the same grandpa,
right? Can we just go back? You said Jaehaerys, right? Was the first king we saw, the very first scene. He had 13 kids. What happened to them all?
9 lived to adulthood. 2 of them got married and were Viserys' parents.
Yeah, he just lived too long. They all died.
Yeah, they all died. One daughter was alive. She had moved to Essos. Again, so at the beginning they gloss over it, but they say like, hey, 14 people had claims.
Yeah.
Some of them were the children of a daughter. One of his daughters was still alive in Essos and had married like a Sea Lord of Pentos or something like that, or Sea Lord of Atlantis, like a really rich person.
14 people had claims, but they were basically like it's Rhaenys or Viserys.
Exactly, those are the real ones. Like those are the only ones that people from Westeros are voting on. But there were like children of like a daughter who's still alive. And one of his in the books, one of his sons is a maester, and he's actually the son. Like Jaehaerys is like, hey, come to King's Landing. You're either going to be my heir, or you're going to figure out who's my new heir. He's like, hold a great council. So it was like this maester's idea to hold this great council in the books. But again, it's Jaehaerys' son who is still alive. So 2 of his children are still alive when the great council happens. But yeah.
Yeah. So I think the next scene I have is, I think they go back to Viserys and Corlys, but we already kind of wrapped that scene up.
Well, it goes to Corlys and Rhaenyra. And this is again
Rhaenys.
And again, I think there's a few scenes where they're like subtly tell you that Laenor's gay, and then they like kind of hammer it home at the end with him like making out with Joffrey.
But he's basically like, oh, he's gonna love betting a woman, and Rhaenyra looks great nowadays. Like she really grew up too. Kind of creepy, uncle.
Well, he's saying that like I think he's basically saying like you women, you Targaryen women are special. Like you're so special, Rhaenys, that Laenor is gonna have to find Rhaenyra special. But yeah, they're basically talking about like our son's gay. How's this gonna happen? Like, are the future heirs like gonna be our children? Like, how are we gonna make this happen? And they're like, oh yeah, he's gonna come around. He'll be fine.
Well, the other thing that Rhaenys is kind of worried about is the Otto problem. Like, there's gonna be fighting. Do we want our family to be involved in this, or should we just steer clear? But Corlys is so power hungry. Yeah,
she's like, as a woman who was passed over, I know that there's going to be a lot of lords who want to pass over a woman. So there's going to be conflict if something happens. And she's basically, I think you're right. She's basically saying like, to me, I take it as like, are you willing to fight for this throne? Because it's not going to be as easy as, oh, we have the right. You're going to have to back it up. And he's like,
it sounds like he's not too afraid of any fight though either. He's ready. He's setting sails.
Yeah.
He's setting sails.
He's like, we got the Navy. And
who are the 2 dragons?
Sea Smoke and
who's the little red one?
Rhaenys is.
Gotcha.
Melees.
What's the girl's name? Lena?
Lena. Yeah, she doesn't have a dragon at the time she's talking to Viserys. Like when Viserys is walking through, she's like, Balon, Vagar, like what's up with them? Like she was asking about dragons. She wasn't a dragon rider.
She's gonna get a dragon at some point?
Maybe. Her brother's a dragon rider.
It sounds like every one of them should have a dragon. They each had an egg. Sounds like they each had an egg in their crib. And it sounds like they know how to hatch them. Yeah,
I mean, so some of them are claimed and some of them are hatched or cradle eggs.
So
I don't know, like, for example, I don't know if Sea Smoke was a cradle egg off the top of my head.
Gotcha.
Some of them I do know.
And I think we talked about this too.
Like Caraxes, Daemon's dragon wasn't a cradle egg. That was written by, I think, Rhaenys' dad before him. So it was written by somebody else.
The Bloodworm.
The Bloodworm was written by somebody else first, I think.
Dude,
maybe his mom wrote it first.
2 dragon tangents. I have a question and I have something I want to quick talk about. You maybe said you didn't know this. A dragon could be reclaimed, but you didn't know if a rider could claim a second?
Yes. It's never happened.
Once the dragon's dead, they stop riding.
Once the
dragon dies, the rider doesn't pick another dragon?
That's never I don't think that's ever happened that we've seen.
Because dragons live longer?
Just because, like, when dragons normally, like, when they die in battle, and at the same time their rider dies. So, like,
right. So basically, Viserys right now had the old dragon.
I think like Balon might be the only Balerion might be the only dragon that has died from old age. So, like, yeah, this is the only time where there's been a rider with a chance to reclaim. And from what we see in the show, like in the books, it's always been like, we've always thought that you couldn't, because, like, why the fuck wouldn't you? If you could, you would.
Yeah, absolutely.
But from what we've seen in the show, Viserys doesn't seem so pro-dragon, right? He tells Rhaenyra at the beginning, like, we should never have trifled with them. So the show kind of makes it ambiguous. Like, can you bond with another dragon if Viserys just didn't want to?
Yeah.
Because he's kind of the only person that I remember that ever had an opportunity to
I want to see this big dragon that you talked about. So that goes to my second point about dragons. I saw a picture of, like, how big Balerion was compared to, like, actually, like, Drogon. Like, thinking Drogon was as big as Balerion. He's, like, a fourth of the size of him.
I think Caraxes is bigger than Drogon, right?
The worm? Yeah. Not the picture I saw. I don't think so. But, like, in comparison to Balerion, it wasn't even close.
Yeah, Balerion. I mean, just think about that skull right there. It's like they could literally walk through that thing. Yeah. They said you could ride a horse through it, and, like, just think about the skull in that room. Yeah. If it had its mouth actually open, and I've heard, like, the showrunners talk about, like, what they like Balerion's skull in, like, the books when Arya is there. She says that the swords were like the teeth were like short swords. So they said they went and got short swords, and they made the teeth the lengths of short swords, and they modeled the skull around that. Mm-hmm. So pretty crazy. It's a huge skull.
Yeah. All right. So then Laenor is making out with his boy toy on the beach.
And he's curious.
Joffrey's curious. Yep. Joffrey's just bad luck. Don't be named Joffrey. Yeah. Don't. I'm pretty close to that.
Some original. Again, if you're listening to this, we expect you've seen the original show. If you haven't, get out now. But if you're named Joffrey, you might die at a wedding.
Don't go to a wedding.
Actually, I'm assuming he's dead, right?
Oh, he's dead, dude. His fucking jaw was jelly. Did you see? You probably didn't notice it. Like, he, like, flipped his head over and his, like, face, like, jellied.
I literally texted Ace, his face is jelly.
Yeah.
Ace had a great quote. It was probably about this time. Let me find what Ace said. It was really good. Westeros is a shaken Diet Coke right now. We're just waiting for those Mentos to drop. Oh, that's when Joffrey whispers to Laenor and says, like, I think it's Christian Cole. But that's who
in the feast.
Yeah, he realized that, and then he's like, this shit's about to pop off. So he was right. That did lead to something.
So we're about to get on the ship, and this is where Kristen's like, just let's leave. Let's go east. We'll get married, yada yada yada.
This is the biggest mystery. For me, this was the biggest mystery that they were gonna give to us from season 1 from the books that we didn't know what happened. Like, there was a thing where basically what the books say is when Viserys basically tells Rhaenyra, you have to marry Laenor or I'm gonna not name you heir. It doesn't seem like that's gonna happen here. But she's like, fine, I'll marry Laenor. She doesn't really want to. She seems to be fine with it in the show, but in the book she doesn't really want to. And there's, like, 3 possible things. One of them is 2 of them involve Christian Cole. One of them, she goes there and she's like, fuck me so that I can tell everyone my maidenhood is, like, I've lost my maidenhood and maybe I don't have to go through this marriage. The other one is Christian goes to her and basically does exactly this. He's like, hey,
I love you.
I love you. Let's run away together. And she's like, no, fuck. Like basically kind of does what she does here.
I'm going to be a queen, you idiot.
And I forget what the third one is, but like this was like one of the really big mysteries that I feel like we kind of got the answer to. And one thing is I never liked Christian. Like I never liked Christian Cole when I read the books. I always thought like he was like a huge dickhead and like one of my literally like my least favorite characters throughout all this. And he's my most favorite character right now. I love him. He's like Dunk.
Right, and he let me down last week by betting her. He should have stayed true.
Dunk, I feel like Dunk would have though.
Dude, Dunk could have had the red spider.
Could he have? He had her braid. He got her braid.
I don't know.
I really like the scene. He calls.
I like the scene too. She bails. Do you think she turns away and she's like, "I want to go, but I have the dagger and I need to stay true to the dagger"?
That's a great call. I didn't think about that. I literally said fuck Rhaenyra. I'm like, again, in the books, I was always kind of like pro Rhaenyra side, like anti Alicent side, and here I'm kind of like fuck Rhaenyra. Like I don't even care what happens. I'm anti Rhaenyra at this point because she's being a dick to Christian Cole. Like she ruined his life. She didn't ruin again. Like he could have said no, but she put him in a really bad situation where he like soils his cloak. He's asking for a lot here, and I don't expect her to say yes.
Yeah, what were they gonna do? Go be peasants in Essos?
But they're like really good friends, and she doesn't say like no, I can't, I understand. She says like, what? You expect me to leave with you because of a crate of oranges? I'm like, fuck you, bitch. Like, let him down easy. Don't be a total like.
She wasn't easy on him.
I get it. You can't do this. You have a huge responsibility.
She's also offering him
the dagger thing, though. I didn't think about it. That's a great point. I'll let you talk now. I just kind of went on a rant. But the dagger thing is a great point. I didn't think about.
She's kind of offering him like a way to do both, like be a knight and be with me. Like I get it. It's like you're half.
Did you think for a second he was going to accept that?
No,
because he's Dunk. Dunk wouldn't accept that.
He's way too proud.
Yeah.
And you can just see it on his face. Well, you want me to be your whore? Like he was out. He was out right then before he even like proposed to her.
Again, I just read all the Dunk books, but there's a part in the Dunk books where he says like, "Oh, once Arlen and I were at a bar, and he's like, I'm gonna take you to a whorehouse and get you your woman." But then he got too drunk and never did. And Dunk's like, "I'm climbing to glad. If I can't have a woman who wants me for me, like you know what I mean." And I feel like that's kind of where Christian's at here. He's like, "Fuck you. I'm not just like your side piece because you know I'm easy and now I can because you've done it once." Like. Fuck you.
So I really think he talked to who she truly is independently, like to her core. Like he was like, "Hey, like we've talked about this all the time. Like let's leave. Like fuck the crown. Like we can go off and just have fun and live our lives and explore." And she's like, she turns around, like smiles because she's probably like, "Yeah, I really want to do this." But then she realizes that her dad just gave her the fate of humanity in a dagger, and she has to be the queen.
I think you're 100% right. I didn't even think about that, but like you're right. When she turned around, I'm like, oh my god, she's gonna do it. This is gonna be so great. But even though I've read the book and I know that she doesn't do this, like I was like, I thought for a second she was gonna do it, and I'm like, this is so great. This is everything I want. Yes, happy day. I love Sir Christian. And then like fuck, I'm like, no, fuck you, Rhaenyra. You're the worst. But I think you're right. That has something to do with it, which makes me hate Rhaenyra a little less. I think Christian Cole is now just my number one character out of sympathy, though. Like, think about it. Everyone is just at this point. Everyone's just playing games, and his life is in the balance, right? Like,
dude,
it kind of goes.
He's an idiot. He's a fool. He's a fool. It's the next. I'm pretty sure it's the next scene. He's an idiot.
So the next scene is what?
Alicent summons him.
Viserys falls coming out of the carriage. I have that one, but yeah. Dude, then Alicent calls for him. That scene was another great one. So tense. She's questioning about Daemon. He says yes, and for a second, I thought the scene is going to end with him confessing.
With her just. Yeah, confessing, but not knowing that he confessed to himself and confessed about Daemon.
Yeah, not knowing that with Alicent thinking he confessed about Daemon, but him thinking he confessed about her. And then, like, that just makes everything more awkward. But no, he comes out and's like, yes, I did it, which is just so awkward.
I soiled my cloak. And she's like, what? This isn't what I wanted.
And at least, like, give the guy some fucking, like, peace of mind. He's like, okay, I understand. Please don't geld me. Because this has happened before. We've had a prior Kingsguard, actually an ancestor of Lionel. I guess maybe not an ancestor, maybe a cousin,
you know
what I mean? A relative, a cousin of an ancestor.
Because
he was in the Kingsguard, but he was known as Lucamore the Lusty, who just like had like I think like 16 children with like 3 or 4 different women as a Kingsguard. He had 3 different like paramours that nobody knew about, and he had 16 children with him.
Good God.
That's why a lot of people think that. Nah, never mind. We'll get into that later. But yeah, so when that happens, he gets gelded, meaning castrated, and he gets sent to the wall. And Christian Cole is basically like, I know that happened like 40 years ago. That happened recently in this time. He's like, I don't want that to happen to me. Just kill me. And she's like, you may leave. And he's like, and he's like, wait. Like, if I'm him, like, wait, what? Are you going to send someone to geld me in the next hour?
Do I take my white cloak off?
Yeah, like at least be like, okay, you're mine now. Like, you're my spot. Like, at least, like, you do something, which I think is what kind of happens at the very end of the episode. Right. But, like, just think about that time period from when he leaves Allison's room to, like, the end of the episode. Yeah. Like, for Christian, you're just like, anyone could show up at any point and be like, you're dead, or I'm going to cut your dick off. Absolutely. At any point. And you have no idea.
I was really on the edge of my seat to see if he was going to off himself.
At the end there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I mean, that's a crazy way to do it. Just like, at least use the big sword.
Dagger to the stomach.
Yeah, the dagger might not even get I mean, maybe you want to just do maybe he would have done some twirling around once you get it in. That's why you go the dagger instead of big sword, but I don't know. It's got to be a better way.
Break into the Maester's thing and take some fucking dream wine or whatever the hell it's called.
Jump off the hand of the kid. Yeah. The tower. Yeah.
Take whatever Lady Olenna took is what I would ask.
Interesting that he was doing it in front of the heart tree too. I didn't even think about that. He was like trying to kill himself in front of the heart tree, but he's like a Dornishman. Like, he's from the Stormlands. He's not an old gods guy, but
whatever. What's next?
Viserys. Yeah, so this is the Viserys with Lionel's in there.
Now he's in the tub.
Treating him. There's 2 Maesters, Orwyle and Melos. Orwyle's like, I have this paste, and Melos is like, no, we don't want that. The leeches are working great. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck. Well, it seems like one Maester's killing him. Like, the one Maester's like, I have this paste. I think it'll be great. And the other one seems to be like, we don't need that paste. The leeches are working perfectly. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what you're using. Like, I haven't seen Viserys' treatment, but whatever it is, it's not working perfectly. So try this purple paste.
It's the Dumbledore Snape thing. Like, we can't save you, but we can slow down the poisoning. You don't know Harry Potter like that.
Not the books, yeah. But so the one thing is, I know that Roose is the person from the main series that we know uses leeches, and I'm not a big.
He stays pretty fit.
There's theories that he's a vampire. People think that like he's a vampire who's like 300 years old, and part of it is like the leeches. That, again, these are like weird ass tinfoil book theories, but the leeches seem to actually work in the main series in some respect, at least for Roose.
I mean, it makes sense in a way, I guess. They use leeches for a long time.
Yeah.
But basically, Harry Potter, there's a Horcrux ring. Dumbledore puts it on because it's the Resurrection Stone ring. He already had the Elder Wand and the Invisibility Cloak, so he was about to be the Master of Death. So he put
Dumbledore?
He was about to be, but this ring was... So he ended up... I don't know if the ring actually was Resurrection Stone or not. It might have been a fake. But it poisoned his hand, and it was the curse was spreading through his arm, and Snape contained it for a little bit, but at some point it was going to kill him. That's why Dumbledore had no problem dying at the end, because he was already dying.
That's cool. So yeah,
Spoiler.
So this that's pretty cool though. This so this scene goes on to, they talk about like, what would my memory be? And he's like, I forget the words he uses, but basically like, what would my legacy have been like if I was in a more trying time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How would I have fared if someone tried to fight me, or if I was trying to go out and conquer somebody?
Yeah. And Lionel's like, it's probably best not to know that. And Viserys
some people like peace. Yeah, dude.
Viserys is like, well, it's interesting what Viserys says. Like, most advisors would be like, oh, you would have destroyed them as fiercely as the Conqueror, but as always, you give me good advice here. Right. And again, I think he's just like,
he said it in like a super like polite way too. Like, oh, you might have been okay, but what's wrong with right now?
I think this is huge book service. Like, again, I think this is huge fan service to his book fans, because Viserys is one of those kings who's very lackluster. Like, if you would have asked me before this season, like before I saw any interviews with like Paddy Considine or anything, like, explain Viserys to me as a king, he just drinks, and he has a lot of feasts, and he has a lot of balls, and he's sick the whole time, and he basically just like does nothing and pushes all his problems off onto his advisors. Like, he's a really bad.
He's like
king.
He's like a partying
Robert Baratheon. He's like a sick Robert Baratheon, very much so. Yes. So, but this show does not make him come off a little bit. He's drunk a lot. He drinks a lot, but he's trying his best. He's making he is making more decisions.
Dude, I don't know. Every decision he's made has basically been, Daemon, you're kicked out of the kingdom, and he lets him back the next episode.
So that one he faults on, but I feel like the big decision is who's going to be the heir, and he made that decision. He made the decision. Yeah. The heir is Rhaenyra, and
he hasn't stumbled on it at all.
People just keep treating like he hasn't made that decision, and they're like, "Oh wait, who's the heir?" He's like, "I've said it's Rhaenyra," and then like the next day, someone comes up and is like, "Wait, but who's the heir?" And he's like, "What the fuck do you mean who's the heir? It's Rhaenyra." Yeah. That's what I feel like is his problem is, and so when they say he's wishy-washy, you're right. He's very wishy-washy on Daemon, but everything else he seems to take a pretty firm stance on. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So do we go right to the feast? Is the feast next?
One last thing is peace is greater than songs. When Viserys, there's a thing where Lionel says that to Viserys, and we would talk about that a lot in our normal book podcast. How everybody always wants to have songs made
you usually die.
And Lionel says like, you don't want that glory. You don't want to be in that ringer. Peace is better than songs. Yeah.
Nobody's written a song about an old man that died at his bed.
There's not many songs about King Jaehaerys, but he reigned for 80 years in a time of total peace. People think he's the best Targaryen king ever. Not many songs about him, probably, because he built roads instead of fought people. Then we see the dragons fly by. Again, we don't really see this dragon much, but there's like, that dragon is red as fuck. Very red dragon. Kind of badass.
I was curious if it was... What color is Rhaenyra's? Like a goldish almost? Like a sandy yellow, gold?
If I get this wrong, I'm in trouble, but I think it's yellow. Yeah, yellow. So Rhaenyra's is yellow. There's another dragon that we haven't seen yet that's considered gold, and that's considered the most beautiful dragon of all time. And some of the book fans got a little upset because in episode 1, Harold Westerling, the Kingsguard, when Rhaenyra gets off the dragon, he's like, that golden beast. And they're like, oh, it's a yellow beast.
It's not gold.
The other one is gold. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so it's yellow, or gold. It's that colorish. Okay. Then we got Feast. Feast is next thing. So for one quick thing right at the beginning, Lannister comes up. Rhaenyra hits him with there's no better man for it.
Yeah.
Right? Being right like, yeah, Laenor's better. Just Laenor's better than you, straight up.
And then the Hightower uncle gets introduced in. Doesn't come up to the days.
So again, I might have missed some of this stuff. I didn't have that in my notes. I missed that. I might have been watching there was a Packers.
Yeah, I don't know what.
I was a little distracted during this episode because the Packers were on Sunday Night Football, so I was like double screening it, and I think there was a goal line stand during the early feast scene, so I missed some of this.
So I think the Hightowers are about to walk up and say like, "Hi, princess! Like, thank you for having us." And the Royce guy steps in.
Okay,
he steps in.
Royce is the next one I have.
Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah.
He like jumps the line. He pretty much cuts the line.
Gotcha. Okay. And Daemon isn't there yet.
Nope.
And he's talking about like, my cousin died. Like, what the fuck? It was
super weird. Like, she was a great rider. There's no way she fell off.
Yeah, he's basically making accusations already.
Daemon, but then Viserys didn't pick up on anything at all. He's like, oh, well, thanks for coming. Get the fuck off the days.
They never finished the conversation because I think drums beat and cut him off, and this is the big Valyrian entrance. And they're like, here we got Laenor, Laena, Corlys, Rhaenys, like the future king consort. Then they come in, badass drum beats. This was in all the trailers. Pretty sweet.
Didn't watch it. So when does Daemon come in? Does he come in right after the Velaryons, or?
So a few things I have is while the Velaryons are coming in, they're mentioning how Alicent isn't here yet, and I thought Alicent might be a no-show for this.
Yeah,
I thought she might just not show up.
She made a grand entrance.
And then when they're doing the whole Valyrian thing, Joffrey's front and center.
Yeah, kind of.
Like they're not hiding this. I thought it was like they're not.
They were like kissing each other during the dance.
Yeah, I thought the point was to be like, we're not hiding this. Like everybody knows. Like fuck it.
I don't know.
And then I think Daemon comes in right after that.
Right after all the Valyrian crew sits down.
Yeah, he comes in. Everybody's like, "Oh fuck, Daemon!
What the fuck's he gonna do?" And he just pull him up a chair.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's old hat. It's fine. He's back. I forgot to tell you guys. I took him back. He's fine.
Yeah. And then Viserys starts his little speech.
A good speech. He had a good speech going.
Like, we're gonna join the families, and then everyone's like, oh my god, look at that, damn. Like, would this really happen? Like, would everyone really silence up that much? I guess if Viserys stops talking, he completely silences up. when he sees Allison. Right?
Yeah.
Allison shows up in this like vibrant green dress.
Well, I was almost like, who the fuck is it now? Like, I wasn't thinking Allison when everybody got all quiet like that.
Yeah, I know. But Damon was already there. If Damon wasn't there, I probably would have thought Damon, right? Which is probably why they made Damon come in before that, or else everybody would have thought it was Damon.
I almost thought like a dragon was crashing into the room or something.
Yeah. Like, I thought people's reaction was a little bit overblown for that scene. But
I mean, was it like, oh my God, she looks so pretty type of deal that...
This was something I never really understood, and they didn't quite do it. I'm assuming they might kind of touch on it later, but in the books during this wedding, I think there's a big, or actually I think it's before this wedding, there was already a big tournament. And at the tournament, Rhaenyra shows up in black and Allison shows up in like a vibrant green. And that's why people start choosing, like, calling the sides the blacks and the greens. Like, I've seen people like on Twitter and on Reddit being like, what side are you, on the blacks or the greens? And I'm like, we haven't even seen...
Yeah,
there are no blacks and greens yet, right? This episode, I think, is what they're kind of doing with it, where they're like, "Hey, the greens," and I'm assuming in the next episode they're gonna Rhaenyra might show up at something in a black, but in the books it's all at the same time. Yeah, and that's when they like call these like two sides the blacks and the greens. They don't ever give this explanation that Larry's gives, right? But Larry's, who's the clubfoot, gives this explanation to Harwin, which is kind of badass.
Oh, the light tower color when the high towers call their colors or whatever it's called.
Yeah, so in the books, like in Old Town, there's a huge tower called the High Tower, which is what House Hightower is named after, and I think it's taller than the wall. It's tall as fuck. It's huge, and yeah, there's like it's basically like a lighthouse. And what I didn't know this. I don't know if this is from the books anywhere. If it is, I wasn't in my memory. But that they burn must be wildfire. It's the only thing we know is green. When they go to war and call their banners. You
don't think there's any like spices that they can just put on it, or they're really gonna fuck around and burn a light tower just for?
I always assumed it was like a giant like metal bowl on the top of a huge tower that they just normally threw wood into. But if they wanted it to be green, they would throw wood with like wildfire on top of it into it. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But they basically, he says like, yeah, they burn green up there when they're calling their banners. Basically saying like, the way I took it is Allison isn't taking this sitting down anymore. She's kind of taking Otto's side, is the way I took what he was saying there.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he's the one that kind of like was poking the bear with that earlier. Like, hey, Allison, remember the tea? Right. And now he's the one like, oh, she's coming and swinging.
Yeah, something's fucked up here. Well, he kind of like got it. If he doesn't have that conversation with her in the garden, she's probably just like chilling. You know, Allison's probably just holding her baby for a little bit, and
she doesn't talk to Christian Cole. She doesn't know anything.
She's not doing anything.
She thinks Rhaenyra's a maiden. She thinks the wedding's awesome. She might be completely Team Rhaenyra. Yeah, that change. The Larry's thing changes everything. It's crazy.
Yeah. So what happens next in the feast?
Yeah. So the next thing is, I don't think he says it yet, but I think there's like some quick cuts of Joffrey, who's Laenor's boyfriend, realizing that Christian and Rhaenyra are eyeing each other up, and then at some point. He's like, hey, he like elbows Laenor. He's like, yo,
I know who it is.
Yeah, so he's kind of saying, and I never got this vibe, but he was kind of saying like, hey, Rhaenyra knew about you and knew who I was. Now we know who he is, so we're even now.
He's really the fucked up. He kind of blows his own cover by going up to Kristen later on. But did he really know? Like, Kristen just wasn't looking. Like, he just looked stern, like straight ahead. You know what? It was also kind of a minus. I'm going to say it. He is the only Kingsguard guy there without his helmet on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on. And we talked about this is because you can't tell who they are when they have their Magneto helmet on. But that's a minus. Like, come on.
I agree.
Either everyone has their helmet off, or
I 100% agree. I noticed that too. There's no story excuse for why he's the only one with this. It just doesn't make any sense. I 100% agree.
So
then this is where I first realized Hobart Hightower was there. Otto's brother. Yeah. Otto's older brother. Allison goes up to him because I had missed him earlier on. So yeah, she goes up to him and he's like, "I'm glad to see." You're repping House Green, basically. Like, fucking looking good, girl. Go Hightowers. Is basically what he says, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Like we were worried that without your dad here at King's Landing, Shadow would take out your light, and here she is wearing the green.
Yeah. Then after that, the Royce guy goes up to Damon, and again, like I like Damon. Team Damon. I, in my mind, want to think that Damon does no wrong, and that anytime the book paints him in bad light, it could be taken. It's possible that he could be doing the right thing. And so far, I feel like there's been nothing where he's super crossed that line. This is where I feel like him killing this episode in general. Him killing his wife is a big crossing the line. Again, the way I took that scene is like it was partially an accident, because how do you can't single-handedly flip a horse.
Nah,
so in my mind, it's like a really weird coincidence that the horse flips in front of him. But yeah, I think it was intended to be he did it. Yeah, but then here he says he gets called out on it, and he basically it's like that thing when a cop gets called out on like doing something wrong, and he's like, I'm a cop, I can do whatever the fuck I want type thing. You know what I mean? It's what he does now. It's like what he does here. He's like, hey, I can take your lands. He's like, yeah, guess what? You're probably the one who inherits House Royce, right? Well, I inherit House Royce because I'm the husband. So get the fuck out of my face, or I'm going to come take everything your family ever owned.
I mean, do people know that the wedding wasn't consummated?
That's a good point. I don't know.
Not a legal wedding.
Did they mention that at this?
She
like
says
when he comes up to her. Yeah, but not here.
No,
right?
It's not mentioned at all. So is it just a secret between them two?
That's a good point. So he might not.
You would think when he's not in the veil with her and she's like, where the fuck's my husband? She'd be like, we didn't even consummate it. Like, call this thing off.
She probably told somebody, yeah. And well, not called off, but at least say it's invalid, right? Because she might be the kind of person who's like, I don't give a like, kind of like Rhaenyra. I don't want to get married. If they're gonna say this is a real marriage and let him I'll do it my own thing up here. Like, you know what? But like, you're right. She probably told somebody.
She didn't seem like she really cared, and the way that the cousin then paints the picture, she was a unique person. Didn't seem like she really wanted to be married or to do anything. She just wanted to beat to her own drum.
We didn't get her much, but I got like Arya Lyanna type vibe, right? I mean, she's out horse riding the one time we see her, so.
Dance time.
Yeah, so next time it's an intercut between Daemon goes up to Laena and Laenor and Joffrey. And
they all start dancing, right?
Yeah, they're all yep, they've all been dancing for a little bit, yeah. But this is when Daemon like goes up to Laena.
Laena's giving him the eyes.
Before that?
Like they're like sitting across from each other at the table. Then she gets up to dance and he follows her.
Yeah.
They have some words basically like, hey, I'm single now, like marry me.
Yeah.
Kind of the vibe I got. Curious if it's gonna happen.
And Laenor, this is where Laenor and Joffrey I think are dancing as well.
Yeah, he like basically kisses him on the cheek. Like it's super like.
Well, he says something about this is where he tells him about Christian. He's like he's got cunt. He says I forget what the line is. Yeah. He's like he's cunt
struck. I think.
Yeah, cunt struck. Yeah, he's like he's super cunt struck, which is funny because like they're two gay guys. So it's like this guy's an idiot who's falling for pussy again. Just
what idiot.
I can see that being the two gay guys. I mean, it's kind of like. It reminds me of the Varys line where he's like, I have no desire. And it makes me like, I see what desire does to men. It makes me glad to be rid of it. And he's like, oh my God, these guys are like, men are so stupid these guys are just as stupid for going after each other. But,
and then I don't know if it's next or not, but at some point Joffrey goes up to Kristen and
I think it's right next. Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I know your secret. Now you know mine, which is stupid. Like he didn't even he could have just said like, I know your secret. He didn't have to put himself in the picture, but he did, and he pays the price. He pays the price anyway. Like he would have paid the price.
Putting himself in the picture kind of saves. It seems like it could save him.
It could have been like, hey, like I'm in the wrong too. Like don't freak out. We're both wrong here.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to see what you thought about it is like Laenor. So let's look at this wedding from Laenor's perspective. The wedding happens, or the feast or opening happens. At some point, Joffrey comes up and is like, hey, I know it's this guy. And then like 10 minutes later, this guy literally beats Joffrey to death.
Yeah.
Does Joffrey not be like, hey, this guy's fucking Rhaenyra, in order to get back at him for killing his boyfriend? That's my first thought, is like, why would Laenor, like Laenor has to know that's why this guy,
because
else would Christian beat him to death?
Because then it's going to come out that he's
gay,
probably. Is that? I mean,
maybe that's a good point.
They're not coming out. There's no pride parades going down King's Landing.
You're right. You're right. You can't just say that.
What would happen to him or Renly? Like they probably would have been, I don't know, sent to Dorne to be with the Martells. So then Daemon beelines it to. Dude, one, let's just talk about Viserys. Not paying attention at all. Just like struggling to chop up his food and eat it. Allison's like disgusted looking at him.
Yeah, not good.
And Damon beelined for Rhaenyra. And they have a high Valyrian conversation in the middle of the two-step.
It's super cool. I really like it. She's like, take me to fucking Dragonstone. Like, do it right now. Just take me, kill all the Kingsguard, and just take me away if that's what you want.
And then it seemed like that's what happened. Like, everyone was like, ah! You don't see it. It looks like they could have been, like, kissing. And then guardsmen start walking in. Like, holy shit, is that Damon's guard? Like, are they about to, like, is he really going to take her away? Because remember last time I was like, they're going to be allies in this whole dance thing. Like,
yeah.
Damon and Rhaenyra together, whether they're married or just like, I was not throwing out the realm of possibility that
they were hooking up on
they were about to get married
or something.
Yeah. And then it's Kristen beating the shit out of Joffrey.
Yeah, absolutely beating the shit. So again, this is something that in the books, there's a tournament that takes place at the same time, like in celebration of the wedding. And Viserys says, like, we're gonna have 7 days of tournaments, which is, again, I feel like on purpose. He's basically saying, like, hey, book readers, don't worry. We're going to cut to a scene where there's a tournament. Because in the books, Christian Cole beats the fuck out of Joffrey in a tournament. And then that's where it's kind of like legal, right? Because it's in a tournament. Dude. But in the books, like, we don't know why. Like, we know that Joffrey is Laenor's, like, boyfriend. And we know that, like, Christian and Rhaenyra had, like, something.
How does it come up in the books? Like, is it suspected that they're together? Or...
No, it's like 100%. Like the
everybody knows. Everybody knows.
The Maester knows, the Maester knows. But again, like, it's kind of the thing where maybe that's why I thought more people knew, and I didn't question like why would like. But I think you're right that the reason Christian can get away with this is because Laenor can't say he's my boyfriend. But the books make it seem like everyone knows. But yeah, I think you're right that the show, not everyone knows that Laenor's gay. But yeah, in the books, like, this happens at a tournament. But again, like, all we know is that Christian. Something happens with Christian. Again, it's around like I said earlier in the books, when Viserys says, "Hey, Rhaenyra, you have to marry Laenor," she goes, and then we know something happens with Christian. We don't know what, but we know from the book something happens. We see in the show what the show is going with, that he went to her, right? And then we know that after that, he beats the fuck out of Joffrey basically to death.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in a tournament. So here, when Viserys is like, "Hey, we're gonna have a tournament," I'm like, dude, okay. In my mind, I'm like, okay, before the end of this episode, we're gonna cut to a tournament scene, and Christian's gonna beat the fuck out of Joffrey. So when that happened, I was like, wait, what is? I didn't like when that tussle happened. I didn't think it was Christian and Joffrey.
Yeah, I was like, what?
But when it was Christian when it was Christian on Joffrey, I was like, oh my god, this is what they're doing. This is how he beats the fuck out of Joffrey. Like, it makes sense now. This is why. I mean, as soon as Joffrey went over to Christian, was like, hey, I know that we're fucking like the bride and groom. I was like, okay, well, this is why. You're going to get the shit beat out of you in a tournament.
How does Kristen not get arrested for just murdering this kid? And
he says that he tried to attack Rhaenyra. That's the only thing I can think of. And that's not from the books, but that's the only thing. That's the only thing
that would make sense.
Because in the books, it's in a tournament, so he doesn't have to defend himself.
But then he's about to go.
But here, I'm saying it's he has to say, like,
everybody bails, and they cut to the wedding, or like Laenor's crying at this guy's side.
Laenor's crying there, and that's when they're playing the music. He's crawling over. That's when I noticed that they were playing like the Rhaenyra music, which was weird because I'm pretty sure it was the Rhaenyra music. But yeah, they cut to that,
and then they get married. They get married in the bloody hall. They didn't even clean up the blood.
One thing I want to say was during all the feast, there's a part where Lionel looks to Harwin and he's like, yeah, like gives him a nod.
And Harwin just like.
Boom, 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 punching people left and right, and then takes Rhaenyra out of there.
Dude,
get her out.
He's a boss.
They call him Breakbones. He's like, I always pictured him as way bigger.
He should have married Rhaenyra.
In the books, he's like a mountain. He's like the mountain. He's huge.
So they get married. Blood's still wet on the ground.
So we missed this. We had to have missed this again. Like, I'm not saying me and you didn't cover it. Like, as viewers, there's a scene we didn't see where Viserys had to be like, "This is happening now." Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
fuck this.
We're getting married now. Because it was supposed to happen in 7 days, and it's happening while the Joffrey's blood is still in the same room. Yeah. Right. So something happened that we didn't see, where somebody made a decision like ASAP. It might have been Corlys.
Yeah, this is fucked up. Like, let's get this. It might have been Corlys. You know what? So this is one thing I want to say. I don't know if you picked up on it or not. You mentioned the rats, and like when you see a rat, it's like so the rat walks into the puddle, and Rhaenys is given like a little bit of like a side eye. I don't know. Just like the way Rhaenys was like standing and looking there, like she's a rat. She's something.
I didn't notice. I did notice the rat because I was like, oh, I mentioned this last time, but yeah.
It kind of like pans into the rat, and you can see clearly like Rainy's standing like in the background.
So what did the rat like in the last episode? Where do we see rats? We saw one above Allison. We saw one in the dragon skull.
I think those were the two. I don't know if there was.
Those were the only two. Okay, when Rhaenyra was sneaking out, and then one above Allison getting fucked by Viserys.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Kriston's about to take his life in the Godswood, and Alicent stops him.
Yeah.
Bum bum bum.
And Viserys goes down at the wedding.
Yeah, he's gone.
He collapses. Which is what I'm saying. Like to your point, like, and maybe this is a spoiler. Maybe I should cut it out. I don't know if I can because I said it earlier. But like, he should, based on the books, he should be alive 10 years from now. I don't see how they're gonna do that. Like. In the books, he loses 2 fingers, but he doesn't lose 2 fingers till 10 years from now. So like,
yeah, he's already. Like,
he's going to be sped that up, so maybe they speed his death up. I'm not sure, but
I wouldn't be surprised if the next episode starts at his funeral. Like, all right, maybe he lived 10 years, but we're not showing him fucking laying in the bed for 10 years.
That makes sense. I could see that. I could see that.
But he's gone. It's time to start fighting. I want to see where this thing. I am so excited to see where this thing pops off.
I can tell. I mean, this is a very expensive show to make, and they've had some CGI. That they did the crab feeder fight, and I'm glad. I heard there was so one of our fans on Discord said that this was a new trailer came out for like the second half of the season. I didn't watch it. I'm assuming there's going to be a decent amount of dragon fights. Like basically,
right? There hasn't been any dragons yet.
I saw all the trailers from before the season came out, and I can't think of a single thing at this point that was in any of those trailers that hasn't happened already. There was 1 or 2 shots from this episode, like the Valerians all walking into the hall. That was in a trailer, like months before the episode came out. I don't think there's a single thing that I've seen at this point that hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to try and avoid anything from here on out.
So you just mentioned a dragon fight. If the Valerians and Rhaenyra are together, who are they fighting? Who's the other dragon side? They have them all.
What do you mean I mentioned a dragon fight?
You're like, second half, you're expecting a lot of dragon fights, or just dragons to be a part of the fight.
Yeah, we've already had it. In my mind, we've already had a dragon fight, and that was a one-sided dragon fight, right? Caraxes and Sea Smoke versus the Stepstones. Yeah. Only one side had dragons there. Dragons are still fighting. Yeah,
what other side has dragons, though? Does Aegon have a dragon?
Aegon's 2. I mean,
That's now, That's what I'm saying. 2. Like, so they're not. It can't be dragon v dragon yet. Unless it's wild dragon.
This is another thing. Is like Aegon in the books. Aegon's older. Like Aegon. So in timeline wise, this. And I don't want to go too much longer, but timeline wise, this is 2016. I think not 2016.
It's 2016.
116. Timeline wise. In the books, Aegon I think should be like 7 by now, but in the show he's like 2 or 3. So, like, in a 10-year time jump, he'd be 17. I think we talked about this before. Like, he'd be 17, but in the show, he's going to be more Jon Snow age. Like, book Jon Snow age, 13, 14. Which, again, is, like, kind of hard to believe, like, if you're doing anything, like, main character-y. It's kind of hard. Like, a 12, the thing about, like, he's going to be 13 or 14. Lena is 12 in in that episode.
And she looks like a child.
Yeah, so we'll, again, I don't know. We'll see. They age them down. They aged Aegon and his sister down.
They're gonna have to age his ass up soon because Alicent's not fighting. I need Aegon to fight.
Yeah, so we'll see.
All right, I'm out.
Enjoy. Yeah, a little bit of spoiler stuff. We'll see you. You'll see Jeff on the next one. Thanks for listening. Bye, Jeff.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
All right, now that he's gone, a few things to mention. So stuff that I thought was going to happen is I thought we'd have more people born. I'm surprised that, like, I don't know how they're going to jump from here to 10 years later. Like, how are they're not going to show the birth of any of the Rhaenyra's children. They're going to leave it all ambiguous as to who the parents are. clearly Rhaenyra, I'm guessing that when the 10-year time jump is done, Rhaenyra and Harwin are gonna be in the middle of a thing. The next episode is gonna be so interesting. Like, how are they gonna play that off? I hope that we start with the young actresses, and then do like a mid time jump, because I feel like they have to wrap a few things up here. But maybe there's gonna be Christian Cole super Alicent side. I'm not sure. I think this episode was awesome. Let's see, the Alicent and Larry's thing. I loved that whole scene, just because, if you've read the books, like if you've read everything, where all that goes. Larry's hides underground. Like, this is gonna be season 3, season 4 shit. Like, Larry's is the underground rat for the Greens in King's Landing for the longest time. Like, he is like, it's so confusing on like whose side is he playing for. He does stuff kind of like for both sides, but it seems like he's like one of the biggest Green supporters the whole time. So you kind of see like where that foundation starts here. He's like, hey, I can be yours if you want. The next thing is, I think it's interesting how Corlys is, when he's talking to Viserys, is super interested about if his last name will be on the Iron Throne. And I think that's because he has to be suspicious due to his son being gay if his actual blood will be on the Iron Throne, right? He might know that that whatever child sits on the Iron Throne is a bastard, and because of that, he at least wants the bastard to have his name, if not his blood, is my guess. The next thing I wanted to say is there's a part in the scene where Viserys is in the bath getting all patched up by the Maesters. I mean, clearly Maester conspiracy, but Lionel says, keep the realm strong. That has to be like I almost did this with Jeff. I think it's probably going to get cut out. I feel like he was playing games when he suggested Laenor, because he knew that his son would eventually have a chance to get in with Rhaenyra. He's basically just doing the Otto Hightower thing, but better. Getting his son in with the queen so that his children are the heirs. So I feel like when he says keep the realm strong, that's kind of like a foreshadowing of that. And the last point I wanted to make was that there's a lot of theories around the idea that Daemon and Alicent had a thing. I think this stems from the original Rogue Prince book, where there was some rumors of that. I think that's all been taken out of Fire and Blood, so it's been less popular in the fandom recently. However, based on the casting of Aemon One-Eye, I've seen it kind of like surfacing more recently, saying like, oh, Aemon One-Eye's casting looks a lot like Daemon. That on top of like how Viserys seems to be in pretty rough shape in this episode, I don't know like how him and Alicent could have any more children. They're going to theoretically have 2 more. So it makes me wonder, especially if Alicent's kind of like taking charge for herself, if maybe those last 2 children aren't Viserys's, but someone else's. And I think it'd be really interesting if Aemon was Daemon's, especially since we know how that ends. So, yep, that's my last point. I didn't catch anything that Daemon said to Laena. I'm gonna have to rewatch this episode because the Packers game. I'm a Packers fan, and the Packers game was on during this episode, so I was double screening it and I was kind of distracted. But yeah, great episode, loved it. I think my buddy Ace, who is a podcast listener, said it best when he said Westeros is a shaken Diet Coke can, and the Mentos are about to be introduced. And I think the end of this episode is kind of introducing some of the Mentos into Westeros. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys in the next one. If you listen to this, like, subscribe. If you read the books, definitely check out our podcasts. But yeah, thanks for listening. See you guys in the next one.